Never know mine. Don't let the suckers waste your time. Don't you? Hey, never know mine. Don't waste your time. Hey.
Welcome, Don Pemberton.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi. You look fabulous.
Thank
I wish
you.
I could see you for real. I know you live in Vancouver, so you're so close yet so far.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for being part of our weekly Facebook chat show. We're calling it Backstage at CapU, so it's meant to be a nice, fun look back and a check-in with all my favorite artists to see how you're doing. My goodness, I know it's been like 3 or 4 months of this crazy new world that we're in. How are you keeping your music up?
I mean, before we kind of went on lockdown, I had just come home from a tour and I was in the southern US and I came home on March 14th and literally like the next day or the day after um, the world was like on lockdown.
Yeah, it happened so fast.
So quickly, so quickly. And so I had to, because I was out of the country, I had to like self isolate for 2 weeks, which was very interesting. And then at the end of that, I was supposed to start rehearsals for Dekinking My Hair, and then we got news that the show had been postponed. Um, so all of a sudden, it was just like every day I'd wake up and it'd be like, oh, this is canceled, this thing is canceled, this performance is canceled. Um, and in some ways, it was like, secretly we've all wished, like, oh, I wish I could just press pause on the world, and like have a break. And well, then that actually happened. So, um, in some ways, I just kind of like allowed myself to have a break and like um, just enjoy the spaciousness of life. Um, I didn't feel the urge to like start, doing things online right away. I kind of resisted it in a in some ways. And then I feel like just in the last few weeks, I've started to want to create and like and play and sing and um, so that's been nice. And in between all of that, I had scheduled some like voice lessons for myself because I knew I'd be, singing in a production like 8 shows a week. And I thought, oh, I need to like just have some good vocal hygiene. Um, so I've just been doing that. I've just been like, getting really nerdy about technique and practicing a lot, listening to a lot of music. And now I'm starting to like write some music. So that feels good.
When you're saying things just kept getting canceled, and I'm so used to booking shows, and all of a sudden I just had to cancel all my shows, and it affected you too, Don. We had a wonderful show scheduled for June 15th at the Fire Hall. We started back this wonderful Fire Hall concert series, free shows for the community, and I live with the hope that it'll all come back again. As normal, full capacity. People will be able to enjoy being together in large gatherings because it's kind of intrinsic to the human experience.
Totally.
Really
Yeah.
strange. I wanted to go back to just your history. Did you grow up in Vancouver?
Yeah, I grew up in East Van and went to high school in Vancouver. And then, when it was time to figure out, like, ooh, what I want to be when I grow up, um, I knew I wanted to do something musical. And
When did you start music? When did you start singing?
it's a good question. I feel like I always sang growing up. I had older siblings who were extremely musical, and singing and music was just sort of a part of everyday life. Um, and so I would just always try to like mimic whatever they were doing. And my older sister, she took singing lessons, and she was like 15 years older than I was. I was kind of like the surprise baby. Um, and so she would, be babysitting me, and sometimes I'd have to go to her singing lessons. And so I have like these very vivid memories of like hanging out underneath her singing teacher's, I think it was like an ironing table or ironing board, and just playing. And I could see them off in the distance, and I would sort of be like copying all the things that they did.
Did you know how special your voice is? Did you know I can really sing, I can do this?
No, I felt I felt like I couldn't sing. Like,
Ah,
um, I remember I had some friends who sang in this children's choir, and we were like 7 or 8, and I just remember thinking like, oh, I wish I could be in a choir. And then one day, this one relative, she said, well, if you can like hum a tune and people can recognize it, then you can sing. So I was like really trying hard to hum a tune, and I was like, I can't recognize this tune. Like, oh no, like I can't sing. So for a long time I thought I couldn't sing. Um, and then it wasn't until I went to high school, and I went to a high school where like I didn't know anybody, and I joined the choir, and the choir was like, you know, grades 8 to 12, like big football players. And one day the teacher was like, okay, who wants to try this solo? And my hand popped up, and I was like, ah, like what?
fantastic.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And so I sang, and then I noticed that people were like, ooh, wow. And I was like, oh, I guess I can sing. Like, so,
It's a
I,
gift you have. Like I sing, and when I'm by myself in the shower, kind of thing, or in the car, and it's like a cringe. It's like I wish I had a beautiful voice. So
oh, well, I love that you still sing. And I think like, singing is just part coordination. So when I'm teaching, I always tell people like, you can sing, like everyone can sing. And it's just like learning how to be coordinated. So Fiona, maybe we should talk.
let's sing together, and hopefully you'll drown me out.
No.
So after high school, as you said, you decided that you wanted to pursue music, and
Mhm.
did that bring you to CAP at that time?
It did, yeah. I knew people who had gone to CAP and done the jazz program, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I really admired them, and I loved jazz. I was like very, very nerdy in high school. Though I was like the only person that really was into jazz. I begged my, music teacher to like start a jazz choir, and he did that. Like for me, it was beautiful.
Well, I think we go back 20 years, because I was here at CAP when you were with Nightcap, and
Yeah.
two of my favorite A-band Nightcap shows, with special guest Kurt Elling, first of all, and Kenny Werner, the wonderful pianist.
Mhm.
It was one of our first sort of big shows where we brought in an international guest like a Kurt Elling.
Yeah.
You sent me, hey, baby, you sent me, you sent me, you got no, you sent me, baby, you do.
And I'll never forget picking him up at the airport because he took almost 3 hours to get through customs.
Oh, no.
He was going to be mad late for his master class.
That's right.
If you
Yeah.
remember, you were being kept waiting back at CAP. And
Yeah,
I
I do.
tried to say, you know what, it's certainly not your fault. Everyone knows why you're late. We got him to CAP, and you guys all clapped when he entered the room, which I think made him feel welcome.
That was a big deal, Fiona, because I feel like you um, were really like cultivating something, and it was like awesome because it was like, oh, we get to like collaborate with this artist who, is doing really well and has an interesting musical voice. And I do remember waiting and like just being so proud that there was going to be a vocalist who um, was doing some cool things,
He was
and
kind of cutting edge, or
yeah,
yeah, groundbreaking in some,
yeah,
very, very arty for a jazz
yeah,
vocalist.
yeah, exactly. And he just was a beautiful thinker, and I yeah I remember waiting, and then he like came in, and I just so loved what he had to say. And I really, I remember, I think I got to sing for him. And that was like such a transformative, like life changing experience. And then getting to, do a show with him was amazing. He was a very generous person. Um, and then I think afterwards, like we got to hang out with him. Like he was just super cool, super groovy.
I think, yeah, I think one of the students had a party and invited
Yeah.
Kurt.
I remember going to that party and like going into the basement. I was like, what? Like Kurt Elling is here.
They're hanging out, just
Yeah, it was awesome.
he's super friendly.
Yeah,
Um, Kenny Werner, I think it was the same year,
it was. Yeah.
a pianist that I really admire well. But what I remember about that is how much he loved Nightcap. You guys did a version of his song Balloons that
Oh
he was blown
yeah.
away by Rejan's arrangement. Kenny Werner said to me he wanted to take you guys on tour with him. He wanted to take Nightcap as his band. So that's really high praise from one of New York's most respected pianists.
Yeah.
As he's Brad Mehldau's teacher, which is pretty incredible. He
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah. I remember him like he was just so affirming and so generous. I think one thing that sometimes happens in music programs is that there's like this sort of divide between instrumentalists and vocalists, and sometimes because vocalists, I don't know, we have a different approach to how we um, sometimes integrate with music, right? Because our instrument is like literally inside of us. um, there's a different knowing that you just have to deal with and explore. And he was just so affirming. He was like, yeah, like you guys are musicians, you you know and I thought that he was just being kind, like, but now, I'm thinking back, like, yeah, he was actually very serious about how much he loved us, which was great.
He wanted to take you on the road. I don't think there's a higher compliment than that, Don.
Yeah, he was really good at helping us to like break down some of the preconceptions about being a musician, and he was like, don't play with people who are mean. And he's like, just write every day, write every day. He's like, I dare you to write like 5 bad songs a day. And yeah, he was really beautiful. He's such a beautiful person.
So after your time at Cap, I think it wasn't very long, or maybe you were still at Cap, but you somehow managed to connect with Linda Tillery, an artist and a cultural heritage choir, a group that we've had a few times here at Cap. So maybe tell us how you met Linda and got involved with, became one of the Cultural Heritage Choir.
Yeah, it was definitely after I graduated, and I was, looking for something like just fun to do musically. I think at that time I was like teaching and gigging a little bit, but I joined a choir, the Universal Gospel Choir. And at that time, the director, Brian Tate, had connected with Linda. And so she would often come and do shows with the choir or do workshops. And one day she called him and said, hey, Brian, my group's coming to Canada. So it was like a quintet. And she's like, I need a singer. Do you know anybody? And he was like, yeah, I do. You should, you should connect with Dawn.
Ah, great,
Yeah.
great.
And that was, yeah, I remember she called me now, or she emailed me, and I was like, oh my God. She's a definite idol. And now has become a beautiful, lovely friend. So thankful for that.
Marking time, waiting on you, babe. Marking time, hoping that you'll come on through. Just a marking time, so we can fly high together. Marking time, waiting on you, babe. Need somebody who understands me, yeah. Need somebody to keep me cool. Need somebody who really sees me. Need somebody who really cares. Really cares.
Oh, it's good to hear. We don't know when we'll have American artists touring through Canada again. It seems like it's going to be a ways off. The music will come back, but it'll be local music first and foremost that will be able to happen, and the tours will be, who knows? We hope sooner than later.
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting. Yeah, definitely I hope sooner than later. And it really just highlights like how important music is. Like really it's being able to see the world through someone else's eyes and having experiences that sort of like help to take you away and take you other.
Yeah, we're all missing it. We're all, I'm missing seeing everyone, getting out to local gigs. I
Yeah.
know I'd see you all the time, Don. You were a big supporter of local artists when you're not performing yourself. And
Yeah.
I do want to, now I've really enjoyed working with you as part of the ensemble every year for our iconic reimagined album shows,
Yeah.
led by our friend and wonderful music director, Steve
Yeah.
Dawson, who everyone seems to love and adore. Now you've been with pretty much every show, from the Rolling Stones to David Bowie to Mad Dogs and
Yeah.
Vancouverites, Joe Cocker,
Yeah.
Tom Petty
Okay.
last year. I'm putting you on the spot, but did you have a favorite year? I think like you've been a standout every single year, and you've also worked behind the scenes with helping out with backing vocals and doing whatever was needed as part of a great ensemble. So, but do you have a favorite year?
I have to say that Tom Petty, that year was like last year was one of my favorites.
And your arrangements of the tunes you did, and now I'm forgetting the names.
I did
You did
Breakdown
right,
and
super funky and sensuous version of that.
oh, Running Down a Dream.
Running down, yes, yes. You
Yeah, that was so fun. I love working with Steve. I love working with that band, and of course, like we've worked together in other configurations, but it was really great because Steve was like, well, what do you want to do with these tunes? I'm like, well, here's what I'm thinking, you know, um, and it's like we can just collaborate and we work really well together in the moment. And yeah, there's always room to like be yourself and to be playful and kind of take things like a little sideways, go on a little adventure. So I love that
Completely.
aspect.
Yeah, I have a new appreciation of the artist, Tom Petty,
Hmm.
after hearing what you guys do with the tunes and you bring them back to life. You put it together in one rehearsal. Y'all get 20 minutes each, and I'm the timekeeper. Like, if anyone goes over, I have to, like, you know,
Get the hook.
have to start, okay, 5 minutes, guys, and, but usually you're all super professional and you just knock it out of the park every year. You can't
Yeah,
ever, you have
yeah.
so many fans of that show. And what next year's or what this year's 20, I think we're just going to forget 2020 ever happened. It's just like a year that didn't happen.
Yeah.
We don't know whether we can do the usual October slot. It's going to be American Beauty, the iconic album by the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
And you knew that though, right, Don?
I did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did. Yeah. Steve asked me, he was like, "Hey, can you be part of this gig?" And I'm like, I don't know if I know like that much Grateful Dead. I'm like, let me just think about it. He's like, don't think about it. He's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, you're gonna change it anyways. Which I loved. I was like, you're right. I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I'm excited because it's, as you said, you kind of like get to have a deeper understanding of each artist's work. So I'm looking forward to it. Whenever it happens,
It's a
I'm
sweet
so excited.
record, and I can't wait to hear what you do with the material, Don.
Thanks.
Well, as we've been talking about music, I thought maybe it might be fun to listen to some music.
Sure.
It's time for the blindfold test.
Okay.
You're up for that.
Yeah.
We will we'll play a few tracks. Well, I tried to do a little historical thing. I tried to pick some really strong Black artists that have sung resistance songs. Obviously, it's a difficult time, but it's also a revolutionary time. And I, I wondered how you're feeling about the protests and the movement. Do you feel like maybe this time it'll make a difference?
Hmm. Will it change? I have hope that things will change and that the change will be consistent and progressive. Um, and really, um, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have hope, but I also um, know that there are so many systems in place that um, don't want us to succeed.
It's a
And
big fight.
yeah, um, but I do know that this is a fight that Black people have been fighting and um, working against for hundreds of years. So I know that we're not going to give up, and we just hope that we have some good allies who can really help. And
You definitely do. Like at first, I think the rioting, it was scary. Like I think coming on the heels of COVID too, it's just like
yeah,
what's going on with the world? It's just there. It just felt dangerous. But as the movement progressed and went global, and there's so much peaceful, and there are some changes that are happening. Like
yeah,
it's become a very strong movement. So I too am hopeful that it will change the world, and the virus is certainly changing the world. It's making us all take, like you said, take a pause, and
yeah.
there is some self-reflection, um, world reflection.
Yeah, definitely. I was chatting with a friend the other day, and we were like, would things, in terms of the movement, like it just seemed like the conditions were right um, to kind of catapult things a little further. And I was like, if if we all weren't in lockdown, and if there was no COVID, like, would it have been as impactful? Would George Floyd's death um, kind of um, started reignite the fire? It's hard to say, but
It's a fair question. 'Cause
one thing I think the gift of this time um, has been just, yeah, self-reflection. And it's like, I think for me anyways, a recognition of what is important, and um, what I want my life to be about, and what I want to keep in my life, and what I don't want to keep in my life. And really, it's like people and freedom, and the ability to be expressive and make music and love fiercely. Those things are so important.
Beautifully put, Don.